Mr. Chiroma sounds very educated. He sounds like a well-read man. The man said he learned to speak English by himself. Yeah, I'm sure he must have known that argument he was putting out there, telling the people in Bamenda to forgive him because he was being forced to do that. During the Nuremberg trials, that excuse was not acceptable.
We owe it as a sacred obligation. That is, if Africa has to unite, some people must not be stifled and dragged into unity. I must walk proudly and embrace my brothers and sisters.
As we have demonstrated, or as, I'll say we have demonstrated over the past 7 years, we are absolutely determined not to be inhabitants of a prison yard, no matter how nicely manicured the lawns would be, how clean the toilets would be, how delicious the meal would be. We do no longer want to be prisoners. Time will tell what happens in Cameroon.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't said anything about the so-called elections that are happening in La République du Cameroon. Many people have asked my opinion. Why am I absent? And I'm absent for several reasons. Remember, not too long ago, they were talking about meeting in Canada. We came out and we spoke then. I have a few people who spoke, and while everybody was jumping on that horse to Canada, we said nothing will come out of Canada. Because one thing is that if you know what the geopolitics of a situation is, what the macro story, what the macro narrative, what the macro facts of a situation is, it's very easy to look at a micro situation. It's very easy to look at the situation on the ground and almost predict to the T what is going to happen. And that's basically what we did in Canada. Now, I haven't said anything about the situation in Cameroon because I mean, what can I say about it? I mean, that's a situation which happens every 7 years or whenever, and the same person wins with pretty much the same everything. There's a formula. Just plug it in, and they write the answer before anything else happens.
This Monday, July 7th,
so I was just looking.
The Northwest and Southwest regions
I did make a piece about Ambazonians who are turncoats, who parade there. It's so comic the way things happen. The reporter reporting is praising zero, is praising dumbasses, is praising sellouts. It's making as though it's like in that place you have to kiss up or die.
Accomplished parliamentarians and individuals of remarkable intellectual capacity and political sagacity bring valuable insights to the table. Both English-speaking regions share a common bond.
Because people who don't kiss up there die, even if you don't say anything, just because of what my friend called prison, because you're living in a prison. Now, who am I calling my friend? I'm calling some of the people I have worked with at esteem and whose opinions I respect. I will bring those to you. Like I said, I don't have an opinion as far as what is happening there. I just decided to ignore it. Some of them, as you will hear, will say I'm wrong ignoring it. But look, there's only so much time in 24 hours, and people decide what to do with theirs. Okay? But I know that even when I don't say it, there are people who say it and they're accurate. And here's the first person who said something about it. Let's listen to him.
So there's been a lot of friends and acquaintances who are asking me about my opinion, impression, thoughts, insights about what is happening in neighboring Cameroon Republic, La République du Cameroon, with the apparent election of Issa Chiruma. I know one of the things that the citizens of La République du Cameroon are very proud of, or they seem to be proud of, is that he's going to be the third president of their country, which I find quite interesting, because if you look at our homeland, Southern Cameroon, West Cameroon, and Bazonia, we can already count, Dr. Endeli, Mr. Foncha, Mr. Joa, as our prime ministers, as our heads of government. And there is no question in our minds that these were people who were elected by the sovereign power of the people, of the population. So that's three right there. And I can understand how people who have been so politically subjugated, repressed, people that Gojidinka refers to as politically primitive and backward, can look at the apparent election of Issa Chiruma as their quote-unquote third president as a victory, as a success. In a certain way, I empathize with them. I want to call it as an apparent sovereign choice that the Cameroonese people have made for the first time in their lives. The elevation of Amadou Ahidjo had nothing to do with the sovereign people of La République du Cameroun. The elevation of Biya Paul obviously had nothing to do with the sovereign will of the people of La République du Cameroun. And this may be the first time that the apparent sovereign will of the people of Cameroon would have given them a leader, a president. But this president, if he succeeds to come into power, will operate strictly within the confines or within the silo of France-Afrique. There's nothing exciting, revolutionary about Chiruma. He's a France-African par excellence. He will be another good student of the French, of the collective West, if you will, as president of the Republic of Cameroon. He will be the new warden in a France-Afrique prison that unfortunately we find ourselves in, and which we are determined to get out of. He may be a new warden that will be more competent in keeping the corridors of the prison clean, in making sure the toilets are flushed, in making sure that the inmates in those prisons have adequate nutrition, are more or less happy, but at the end of the day, he remains the warden of a prison. We are tired of being prisoners in French Equatorial Africa. And as we have demonstrated, or as, I'll say we have demonstrated over the past 7 years, we are absolutely determined not to be inhabitants of a prison yard, no matter how nicely manicured the lawns would be, how clean the toilets would be, how delicious the meal would be. We do no longer want to be prisoners. time will tell what happens in Cameroon. But I think that, the people of Ambazonia must get out of this prison, no matter who the Cameroonese people elect or who the Westerners who have backed Biya fully for the past 43 years decide to use as their next Trojan horse. That's it.
Okay, having listened to Terence, what do you think? What do you think? I'm going to tell you what I think. I took some notes. Terence concludes by saying, time will tell what happens in Cameroon, but I think that the people of Ambazonia must get out of this prison, no matter who the Cameroonese people elect or who the Westerners who have backed Biya fully for the past 43 years decide to use as their next Trojan horse. For those who don't know what a Trojan horse is, it's I think the best way to explain Trojan horse is that I'll put a picture and you see what the Trojan horse is. And this Trojan horse is brought in and it stands like a statue, but in that statue there are a lot of loaded men with guns ready to demolish the place. But the citizens don't know. And so Paul Biya, Amadou Ahidjo, the two that have ruled that country since 1961, have been Trojan horses. Okay, so Terence says that they've elected 3 prime ministers. When you talk about 3 prime ministers, you're talking from 1954 to 1972. There were actually 4 prime ministers. Terence only mentioned 3 because those are the 3 that came in legitimately. The other one was Solomon Tandemuna, who was a Trojan horse, planted there by Amadou Ahidjo. So Terence does not count him. Okay? So he says that Southern Cameroon has elected 3 prime ministers. So electing your leaders is not a new thing for the people of Ambazonia. And they did that with their sovereign right. There was no interference from some foreign France or some other foreign backers that come in. Because when one Western power is in there, all of them is a fair game for every one of them. And so Mr. Wakai calls them Western partners. So Ambazonians are used to that. And he is saying that La République, the people of La République, are being very excited that they may actually get to put their own person there, a person they elected. They're going to exercise their sovereignty as a people for the first time since 1960, January. One of the saddest things listening to Terence is he says that we are in that prison too. So Ambazonians are in that prison too, illegally, by a conspiracy of the Western powers. We're already a free people, electing our government, the first democratically elected government in sub-Saharan Africa. They came and destroyed it, took us and put us into colonialism when the promise was, as a trust territory, the promise was we will end up either being an independent country or be a self-governing country. Today, we are none of those. I have said in a lot of shows that they would have gotten away with this, except they bungled it. If they just did it right, it wouldn't be a problem. You won't have Barrister Bobga coming up and showing and saying, "Show me the receipts."
What was not done in Fumban, in order that we should translate the Memorandum of Understanding, which was not a legally binding position, that Southern Cameroon, which we now know as Ambazonia, was going to enter into a two-state federation arrangement where the states were going to have equal status. It doesn't matter what the equations are. In the course of my career in human rights advocacy, I came across the constitution, the making of the constitution of the Fiji Island. And it was not about who are the majority, but a balance, inviting more of equity than equality, was the exit point for the conflict and a solution that has turned around to be sustainable.
Show me the receipts. If you own this place, show me the receipts, because we know it wasn't yours. And so Ambazonians, before they picked up their guns this time to defend themselves and seize their country back, they have been looking for ways to distance themselves from this colonialism that is unending on black people all over the world. Gojidinka thought, oh, maybe they are doing this to us because there's Southern Cameroon, there's Cameroon in our name. And that Cameroon did not come from any of the people who are supposed to be its subject. That they did not name themselves Cameroon. It was named by foreigners. And so Gojidinka came out and said, well, you know what? Let's call ourselves Ambazonia and they are Cameroon. Otherwise, we've never had a history with those people. We've never had a history with La République du Cameroun. We're part of a German conquered territory in Africa. And when the Germans left, parts of that territory became Central African Republic. Some are now Nigeria. Some are in the Congo, some are in Gabon. They're all over the place. And for some reason, they want to take Ambazonia and attach us to a French colony. But he made a very brief statement, describe what is and what is not, and asked his people to stay out. Now, there's somebody else who is also a very prominent person in the Ambazonian struggle who feels a little different. And I'm talking about Barrister Harmony Bob Gambuton. Let's listen to what he says.
Ambazonia and the Republic of Cameroon. There is a lot of drama that is playing out, especially in the run-up to the presidential election in Cameroon, which curiously involves candidates from Ambazonia. I have no problem with that because in my revolutionary life, I recognize the very essence of Pan-Africanism. But I underscore it with a strict requirement of mutual recognition and respect of our separate identities.
For Professor Anyangwe, we should have nothing to do with the whole thing. That it is ridiculous, that it is contradictory, that we are fighting to get out of the place. We've been doing so for 9 years, and then here we are being interested in what happens in that place. I want to say something about Chiroma. I did not spend a lot of time listening to Chiroma, but when Chiroma went to Bamenda, I listened to him. And he was giving apologies about what he did as part of the repressive group that brought pain to Ambazonians. He was one of the most outspoken person. He was a mouthpiece, threatening people in La République du Cameroun. If you bring any secessionists on this thing, we are going to shut you down. Try. It backfired. I'm going to tell you how it backfired. It backfired in that when he took off, when he threatened all the broadcast houses in La République, Ambazonian put up SCBC. And that was the only channel now in the whole colony talking about freedom. And all Ambazonians learned from there. I even heard that the loudmouth governor of the Southwest, who calls people dogs and rats and acts like he is a Gestapo, an African who is a colonial beast, finds his strength and his power on dumping down on his own kind. What a shame. What a shame. I saw this man talking to chiefs, talking to Ambazonian chiefs who were part of the ruling elite, who England came and valued as part of the ecosystem, as part of the proper man, as part of the legitimate running of the place for their own benefit. They saw need and exploited francophone, some people call them francophile, I don't know what the difference is now sent as a colonial officer to go, instead of conniving with his friend and help liberate his own country, thinks that he wants to be more colonial than the creators of colonialism. He too was watching SCBC at the time. So Chiroma gave nobody a choice. And I am so happy now that the story of Ambazonia is actually being told by Cameroonese now. It's not even by Ambazonians anymore, because Ambazonians are now in the business of freeing themselves. They're not more in the business of talking. They're having difficulties with proper organization, but let's put it this way. What has happened in the last 9 years has been a riot. And what I've been observing on the ground now is more professionalism coming on. And I am very hopeful that Ambazonia would soon organize itself and free itself. And you can tell that even in the disorganized and truncated leadership that they've had, they've still been able to send a lot of bees to go meet their God. Because in La République, when you mentioned bee, it was terror. Everybody went silent. But Ambazonians have shown that they can fight. Because of that, Atanganji had a job. Without Ambazonians, Atanganji would not have the job he has now. Because of that, some chiefs were able to sell out. I hope the villages of these chiefs, when Ambazonia is free, doesn't take them back as their chiefs. They all sell out. So Chiroma comes and apologizes and say, "Oh, I was just doing what I was told. I was just doing what I was told. It was not me. I could not." Look, Mr. Chiroma sounds very educated. He sounds like a well-read man. The man said he learned to speak English by himself. Yeah, I'm sure he must have known that argument he was putting out there, telling the people in Bamenda to forgive him because he was being forced to do that. You know, during the Nuremberg trials, that excuse was not acceptable. Those who used that were shot or hung to death. When you obey an illegal order, an immoral order, the excuse cannot be that, "Oh, I was just following orders." No, it's not acceptable. And Mr. Chiroma should know that. So, Mr. Chiroma is not good news. He may be changed from if he wins, he may be changed. But he will need to do that better. He will need to do more than telling Ambazonians that I prefer federalism, or we can sit down on a table. No, La République du Cameroun never asked for Ambazonians to come and join them. They took Ambazonians and looked at them and say, press their necks to the ground, step on them, don't allow them free. And they took that with glee. And treated us with impunity. They closed our ports. They killed all the businesses in our land, stole a lot of equipment from our land to their land, downgraded our schools, called us Anglo-fools, called us enemies in the house, called us dogs, called us rats. You would think they would have learned from Nazi Germany not to do that. But they did, because they felt they could. And make a people who are more superior. They came from a superior system. They came from a more humane system. And they went into a colonial system, a barbaric system, a top-down system, a command system. And you want to shame Ambazonians? You call them Anglo-fools? No. They looked at you. It's like, whoa, my goodness. People act like animals, very disorganized. And they brought that to Ambazonia. Our town planning was gone. The level of sanitation that Ambazonians had in there was gone. Their local governments killed. It became a place where people go and loot. A place where chaos reigns just as it reigns in their own land today. So Mr. Chiroma will need to do better, because Ambazonians cannot stay in that system. If you know where we come from, you will know why we cannot stay there. If you know why they call us Anglo-fools and we just look, it's because if somebody doesn't have a way to even determine your own value, but he has a gun on your head, what do? You just look. Ambazonians didn't just look. They tried to organize themselves and reform the system. That was what SDF was all about. They did not squash SDF. They bought it. And before Frundi went and was dancing a banja with with the enemies of his own people. They were sitting they were holding conferences, conventions together. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So Mr. Chiroma will need to do better. If he happens to win, and I'm not saying the solution of Ambazonia is in his hand, it is not in his hands. But he could make Ambazonians leave that prison, as Mr. Wakai calls it. He can allow them to get out easily with less pain, and maybe we'll just be better neighbors. And then when they chose to get out of their own everlasting prison where they've never known what it means to be free, Ambazonia may help them to actually know what it was to be a Southern Cameroonian in the days and what it is to be an Ambazonian now, even in a very chaotic La République du Cameroun. And that's why you see the Ambazonian struggle has continued. And it will continue until Ambazonians are free.
We are not your brothers. We are your neighbors. Listen, your fight is not our fight. We are not part and parcel of you. If you think that we'll come and help you to remove Pobia, you people have failed. You know what to do if you want change. Go and fight for your change alone. We are not part and parcel of you. I don't want to put this out there because you people are putting our names in, Ambazonians will come and help you. We will do this. No. We have been fighting a war for 9 years. You guys said nothing about it. You don't care about us. Not now that you think that we can be helpful to you. Never, never, never. Your fight is not our fight. We are not in the same lane. Maintain your lane. We are on our lane. I'm saying this as a message. I'm passing this not as a warning, but as a promise that we are not part and parcel of you and will never be. We are best of neighbors. We are not brothers. We are not sisters. We don't belong to that place. We took our destiny into our hands 9 years ago. We said never again. And enough is enough.
We owe it as a sacred obligation. That is, if Africa has to unite, some people must not be stifled and dragged into unity. I must walk proudly and embrace my brothers and sisters. I've been reluctant to be talking because our enemies are not in Africa exclusively. Those in Africa are only agents of the real enemy.